really challenging when you've got staff members that have worked for you for 5 years.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're going to try and clearly define their role and responsibility, which means you're changing, you might be changing things for their world. And then that's really hard to manage as well. And also, you've got to reinforce. Like once you provide them with their responsibilities, you got to reinforce that that's their responsibility sometimes too, which is hard to get used to, because you think if you tell someone something once, then that's it. They should just do it that way, but it just doesn't work like that. And I think you've got to learn to show a lot of patience and
And how did you make that happen? Because often people have worked for years without a position description. The first reaction may well be, why do I need this? I can do what I do perfectly well. So you may well have had some resistance.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
Well, I called you up and you come in my office and we did a session on ADKAR. Remember?
We did.
ADKAR. So, and I just constantly go back to that. Well, yeah, so why don't you talk about ADKAR?
So ADKAR is an acronym. It's part of the ProSci change management methodology, and it stands for awareness. So making people aware of why the change is necessary. So people need to understand this is what it's for, this is the reason why we have to make the change, to improve this, to fix that, or whatever the reason is. And they need to have an opportunity to discuss and ask questions about that. The D part of ADKAR is desire, so that you want people not just to be aware of the change, but you actually want them to be proponents of it. You actually want them to not just support you in it, but actually want to help make the change as well. So it really is fundamentally about answering the question, what's in it for them? Why would they bother changing their way of doing things? So, for example, when you're putting out a new position description, they say, well, I don't need it, why would I need that? Well, it's a good idea for us to be aligned collectively on what we agree those responsibilities are, because sometimes there are differences of opinion, and when you write it down, it makes it very unambiguous. So getting people to explaining why it's in their interest to do that, and now we can allow them to take real ownership and responsibility for it, rather than wondering, is this something I should ask Trav for permission for, or do I make the decision in this space myself? K is about knowledge. It's about giving people the tools and capabilities to be able to take on whatever it is that might be new to their role that they may not have the skills for previously. So it might involve training, it might involve direct support or mentoring, or sending them on courses. And very often when companies need to make a change in their organisation, that's the first place they go, we've got to make this change, we've got a brand new accounting system, let's get everybody trained. So they send everybody on the training for the accounting system and wonder why nobody comes back and wants to use it, because they haven't taken the time to do the awareness and the desire part as well. The other A in ADKAR is for ability, and my analogy here is if you didn't know how to drive and I gave you the knowledge and the training to drive, you sure as hell wouldn't stick somebody in the car and just put them out the road for the first time on their own. They may have the knowledge, but they don't necessarily have the ability. So the comment you made earlier about supporting people through that change and reinforcing it is really, really important, because you want to make sure that people do have the skills to be able to apply the knowledge they've acquired. And very often they may get it wrong first time. That's okay, provided that they've got the help and support to understand where it didn't go quite right. And then lastly, the R is exactly what you just talked about, the reinforcement. It's a bit like an elastic band. You pull an elastic band out, and the natural tendency is to pull it back into where it was. Why? Because people are comfortable with doing what they used to do. Now we've introduced a new way. They need to get comfortable with the new way, and that takes time. It's never overnight. It's going to take a bit of time. So again, the management help and support in that space is really, really important. So I'm rapt that you remembered the acronym, because just being able to recall that and apply it for even those little changes is a really powerful technique to make sure it sticks and works.
Yeah, because I use it all the time, because when you start working with you really do start to realise how far away you are from having the company set up the way that you really want it to be set up. I remember talking to you in the first few sessions and realising the scope that I needed to undertake. I could see all the holes in my business, and I had a vision. I knew straight away what the vision was and what areas of the business I needed to work on, but it was the scope was quite sort of large. And so, you know, that undertaking. So, for example, we started off by looking at the functions of the business,
Right.
and then the organisational structure,
Yep.
the responsibilities of each of the people that work for you. From there, we looked at what their objectives are, so that we can measure against that and against our goals. Then that starts to uncover all the problems that are in the business.
Right.
So then you need to bring in potentially new systems.
Yes.
And you've got people that have worked with you for 5 years thinking, why do I have to change what I've
That's
been
right.
doing? I know what I'm doing, but I don't have these tools in place, then I can't really manage the business
Yeah.
properly. The ADCAR has been extremely helpful
It's great.
for my business.